Hello and welcome to Creative Writing Wonder Women for Birkbeck Arts Week 2020. I'm gutted that we can't all be there together in person, but I am now Zoom-tastic and have been able to record this message for everyone, and most importantly, to be here to introduce you to some fantastic writers of exceptional talent. Abbey Dare, Louise Hare, Golnoosh Nour and Jac Shreeves-Lee. These are all fantastic writers whose books have been published this spring, and I'm going to start with Abi Daré, a woman with a very intimidating list of qualifications in law, project management, and a distinction in creative writing from Birkbeck. Congratulations, Abi. Abi's first novel, The Girl with the Loudoun Voice, won the Bath Novel Award in 2018. And she was also a finalist in the Pen Factor competition the same year. The praise for Abi's novel is as impressive as her qualifications: unforgettable, mesmerising, captivating, arresting, a moving story of what it means to fight for the right to live the life you choose. The Girl with the Loudoun Voice is about Adunni, a 14-year-old Nigerian girl who knows what she wants: an education. As the only daughter of a broke father, she's a valuable commodity. Removed from school and sold as a third wife to an old man, Adunni's life amounts to this: 4 goats, 2 bags of rice, some chickens and a new TV. When unspeakable tragedy swiftly strikes in her new home, she's secretly sold as a domestic servant to a household in the wealthy enclaves of Lagos, where no one will talk about the strange disappearance of her predecessor, Rebecca. No one but Adunni. As a yielding daughter, a subservient wife and a powerless servant, 14-year-old Adunni is repeatedly told that she is nothing. But Adunni won't be silenced. She's determined to find her voice, in a whisper, in song, in broken English, until she can speak for herself, for the girls like Rebecca who came before, and for all the girls who will follow. Thank you, Abi, for your writing and for your commitment to writing about subjects that spark social change. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Louise Hare, another fantastic writer who's managed to get a distinction in her MA in Creative Writing from Birkbeck. I never got a distinction, by the way. Such an accomplishment. Louise's debut novel, This Lovely City, has just been published by HarperCollins in the UK and by the House of Anansi in the States. This book was chosen by the Booksellers Association as Book of the Month for March and has had fabulous reviews in just about every publication going, including the Mail on Sunday, if you can believe that. Louise was also one of the 10 best debut novelists of 2020. Absolutely no surprise there. The Lovely City is a historical novel set in a post-war London. The drinks are flowing, the music is playing, but the party cannot last. With the Blitz over and London reeling from war, jazz musician Laurie Matthews has answered England's call for help. Fresh off the Empire Windrush, she's taken into a tiny room in South London lodgings and has fallen in love with the girl next door. Touring Soho's music halls by night, pacing the streets as a postman by day, Laurie has poured his heart into his new home, and it's alive with possibility, until one morning he makes a terrible discovery. As the local community rallies, fingers of blame are pointed at those who had recently been welcomed with open arms. And before long, the newest arrivals become the prime suspects in a tragedy which threatens to tear the city apart. Atmospheric, poignant and compelling, Louise Hare's debut shows that new arrivals have always been the prime suspects, but also that there is always hope. Welcome, Louise, as a Wonder Woman, and thank you for an important novel with such memorable characters tackling an important and timely subject. Golnoosh Nour is the next Wonder Woman I'd like to speak about. Golnoosh has just completed a PhD in literature and creative writing and now teaches at Birkbeck. and works as a translator. Golnoosh's debut poetry collection, Sorrows of the Sun, was published to critical acclaim in 2017 under her pseudonym So Gol Saw. Golnoosh regularly performs her work across the UK and internationally and presents a show on Soho Radio. Golnoosh's book, The Ministry of Guidance, is set mostly in Iran, but makes forays into London, Germany, and the transit area of a Ukrainian airport. The stories are brilliantly deft in summoning up the dilemmas of their protagonists, be they characters who are kicking against the confines of society in which they were born, or characters wanting to embrace those confines. Nour is a brave and acute observer of how the human spirit fights free of social repression in all its guises. These are stories that argue for nuance in a world that wants to make things black and white. Congratulations and welcome, Golnoosh, and thank you for your bravery in writing about how we can overcome oppression, something we all need to remember wherever we are in the world. And last but not least, Jac Shreeves-Lee. Hello, Jac. Jac Shreeves-Lee is the author of the debut collection of short stories, Broadwater, which will be published by Fairlight Books in July of this year. Jac was born and bred in Tottenham. She currently works as a clinical psychologist and a magistrate, which I was also not a psychologist, but a magistrate. So we have that in common, Jac, and it's a real education. Jac's fiction pieces have been widely published in various anthologies, including Virago, the Mechanics Institute Review, and the Bridport Prize Anthology 2017. Jac's stories and poems have been shortlisted for the Bridport Prize in 2015 and 16, and longlisted for the Fish Publishing Prize in 2018. What a list. In her spare time, Jac enjoys jam making, Caribbean folklore, and blues and jazz. Again, this is a timely novel about the infamous Broadwater housing estate, one of the most well-known housing estates in Britain, a place where post-war dreams of concrete utopia ended in riots, violence, and substandard housing. In this collection, Jac gives voice to the people of Broadwater Farm. With evocative language and raw storytelling, she compassionately portrays their shared sense of community. This is a community with a rich cultural heritage comprising over 40 nationalities, generations old. It's a beautiful and rich collection of real people living real lives that we will all recognise. Thank you to all of these Wonder Women writers and to everyone at Arts Week. And the breadth of these stories show how fantastic Birkbeck is at producing and allowing voice to such a diverse collection of women and collection of writers, whoever you are. Thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Hi, I'm Abi Daré, author of The Girl with the Loudoun Voice. I'm very excited to be reading from chapter 2 of my book. When the sun climbed down from the sky and hid itself deep in the crack of the night, I sit up on my raffia mat, kick Kayu's leg away from my feet, and rest my back on the wall of our room. My head been stoning my mind with many questions since this morning, questions that are not having answers. What is it meaning to be the wife of a man with 2 wives and 4 children? What is making Morufu to want another wife on top the already 2? And Papa, why is he wanting to sell me to an old man with no any thinking of how I'm feeling? Why didn't he keep the promise he made to Mama before she died? I rub my chest where the too many questions is causing a sore, climb to my feet with a sigh and walk to the window. Outside, the moon is red, hanging too low in the sky, be as if God pluck out his angry eye and throw it inside our compound. There are fireflies in the air this night. Their body is flashing a light of many colors, green and blue and yellow, every one of them dancing and blinking in the dark. Long ago, Mama tell me that fireflies are always bringing good messages to peoples at night. A firefly is the eyeballs of an angel, she say. See that one there? The one perching on the leaf of that tree, Adoni. That one be bringing a message of money to us. I didn't sure what message that firefly was wanting to bring that long time ago, but I know it didn't bring no money. When Mama was dead, a light off itself inside of me. I keep myself in that dark for many months until one day Cayus find me in the room where I was sorrowing and weeping. And with his eyes round, full of fear, he begged me to stop my crying because my crying is causing him a heart pain. That day, I pick up my sorrow and lock it in my heart so that I can be strong and care for Cayus and Papa. But sometimes, like today, the sorrow climb out of my heart and stick his tongue in my face. When I close my eyes on some days, I see my mama as a rose flower, a yellow and red and purple rose with shining leaves. And if I sniff a deep sniff, I can catch her smell too. That sweet smell of a rose bush sitting inside the mint tree, of the coconut soap in her hair just after washing at Agon waterfalls. My mama was having long hair which she would plait with black threads and roll around her head like a thick rope, looking like 2 or 3 small tires around her head. Sometimes she will remove the threads, let the hair climb down to her back so that I can brush it with her wooden brush. Sometimes she will take the brush from my hand, make me to sit on a bench in the outside by the well and twist up my own hair with so much coconut oil that I go around the whole village smelling like a frying food. She didn't old my mama, only 40-something years of age before she died. And every day I feel the paining in my spirit for her quiet laugh and voice, for the soft of her arms, for her eyes that say more things than her mouth ever speak. She didn't sick for too long, thank God. Just 6.5 months of coughing and coughing until the cough eat up her whole flesh and make her shoulders to be like the handle of our parlor door. Before that devil sickness, Mama was always keeping busy, always doing the this and the that for everybody in the village. She would fry 100 puff-puffs every day to sell in Ikati market, sometimes picking 50 of it, the best of the gold brown ones from the hot oil, and tell me to take Iya, one old woman living in Agon village, the girl with the Loudoun Voice. Thank you.
Hello everyone, Golnoosh here. Happy Arts Week to you. As some of you might know, my short story collection, The Ministry of Guidance and Other Stories, was recently published by Muswell Press. And it contains 13 short stories, all about the lives of Iranian queers, both within and outside Iran. However, it is really a book about the fluidity of sexuality. And I'm going to read 3 short extracts from 3 different stories from the book just to give you a taste of the whole book. The first extract I'm going to read is from the second story called An Evening of Martyrdom, and it was also published in Granta online, so this is where you can also find this story. Finally, Hasty spilled her cards on the carpeted floor, letting them melt into the flowers of the intensely beautiful Persian carpet. As a result of smoking, drinking, and nibbling, Hasty's lip gloss had come off, and Mina found her unpainted lips with their natural meaty color even more appealing. She was already sniffing the scent of her neck when Hasty grabbed her right hand and murmured, "Let's go." Mina did not know where, but followed her nevertheless. Hasty and Mina were walking in a narrow corridor with orange wallpaper, hand in hand, Hasty a few steps ahead, leading Mina. Mina's nostrils were on Hasty's nape, sniffing its strange scent, which Mina concluded smelled like her dead mother, a mixture of cigarette smoke and spicy cologne, resulting in a scent of burnt trees, which she relished. She sensed her next painting would be a forest on fire. She knew Hasty was taking her to Omid's bedroom at the end of the long corridor. Suddenly she felt in love with the existence of this corridor, which connected Omid's living room to his bedroom, separating her and Hasty from the rest of the party. It was indeed the best thing that could exist in a house, and probably in the world. However, the time was not the best time. Mina noticed a black clock with golden numbers hanging on the wall of the corridor, showing 1:15. She thought of her father and heard the sound of the wailing of Omid's neighbor at a higher volume than when they were in the living room. It was probably because there was no music in the corridor, and yet Hasti's movements and presence were the most powerful piece of music. "How old are you, by the way?" Mina asked Hasti. 27, why?" Hasti replied, her cold hand pressing on Mina's bare arm. "Just curious, I'm turning 20 in a week. You should come to my birthday party. Omid's also coming." She felt frivolous for having said all this in her drunken voice. Hasti didn't say anything, just pushed her into Omid's bedroom, the promised land. The room was dark and quiet. Mina noticed the neighbors had finally stopped wailing, but for a moment she wished they had not stopped, as the silence was even more suffocating. She opened the curtains and the light of the night poured into the dark room. The moon was full and Mina felt insecure. Hasti pushed her onto the bed. Mina pushed her back. "I need to tell you something," murmured Mina. "What, you want to know my surname?" Hasti let out a nervous laugh at her own joke, which Mina found too crude, almost cruel. "No," Mina retorted while Hasti was undressing. The red dress was gone in a moment, thrown to the floor. Mina found herself touching Hasti's breast with the tip of her trembling fingers. Hasti grabbed her hand and stopped her. "What, you're not on your period, are you?" "No, thank God." "But..." Mina paused and gazed into Hasti's eyes in the dark. Hasti put her arms around her with force. "But what? You're killing me." I'm gonna stop there. The second extract I'm going to read for you is from a story called Caspian. It was 8 and the sea was getting dark. The bright side is there are no Omol-Taki people in the sea now. Her brother's voice echoed in her brain. Did Muhammad find her Taki and Omol, with her chaste hijab prayers, fat face and small eyes? She saw Armin and Muhammad from afar. She saw Armin in Muhammad's thin yet powerful arms. They were jumping and laughing in the wavy sea. There was no one else around, no Omol-Taki people. The air was humid. She stood worrying about, she didn't even know exactly what. Muhammad's back was to her. They wouldn't even think about her. She was irrelevant. And Ummul, with her hijab, prayers, studies, godly goals, chastity and lack of knowledge of music and French and Sadaq Hadayat. Standing on the beach in her tight headscarf, she couldn't even hear them, but she could see their laughter, their joy. Then she finally saw. She saw her brother biting Armin's neck while rising and falling with the waves. Except that Muhammad didn't look like her brother any longer. He looked like a violent animal preying on male flesh. She saw Armin swiftly kissing her brother's parted lips. The kiss must stay salty and polluted like the Caspian Sea. She hadn't seen anything like this even in the Hollywood movies her classmates convinced her to watch under the pretext of improving her English. There was always a bulky brunette man making love to a bony blonde woman. Never 2 men kissing. 2 men as beautiful and as dark as Armin and Muhammad. And the final extract is from a story called Acid. We are walking to his flat in King's Cross. The air is crisp. We are both intoxicated. We hold on to each other so as not to fall down. We don't talk while walking. So I finally met his friends, but he will never see mine, even though I have informed them of James's significant existence. My mind flies to my friends in Shiraz. I think of our gatherings. I think of how we poured homemade wine on each other's chests and licked it under the pretext of playing truth or dare. The truth is there was no truth. It was only dare. I am shuddering. I am in love with London, but I suddenly feel like leaving it. And yet I dread the idea of living in Iran again, despite the fact that I know I will never find somewhere as beautiful as Shiraz in spring. My sister keeps telling me, France is so you, and calls England the arrogant colony of America in a haughty tone. I actually fancy going to France to live with my sister. Since she has finalized her divorce, she has become free again. We will listen to French music, watch French films, eat French cheese, drink French wine, and fuck French guys. And the tedious French classes my mother coerced me into taking will finally prove of use. I could continue my studies there. Perhaps my sister can even find me an office job at the university where she teaches. I am certain it is easy to pretend to love Paris, to even die for it. That's what all the cliches say. The same cliches that say, I love London, with badly painted hearts on cheap t-shirts bleeding all over Trafalgar Square. And the same cliches that say, leave Iran and never look back. But no matter how hard you try, once you have tasted Iran, you are addicted. You cannot not look back. And you will return every summer and every Christmas and every Persian New Year and every bloody holiday. And your less wealthy and less successful friends who are still stuck in the process of escape will ask you, why the hell do you keep coming back here? What is wrong with you? Why don't you go to Bali and Venice for holidays, to Paris and Berlin? There is nothing to see here. And you don't even get their point anymore, despite the fact that you used to speak exactly like them. You can't even understand your mother tongue, because a traveler finally loses all her languages. And it dawns on me that I shall leave London like I left Shiraz. But what about James, the one and only James, my love, my rapture, my torment? Thank you so much for listening to me, and enjoy the rest of Arts Week. And this is my book, and you can order it from Waterstones and everywhere else. See you later. Bye.
Hi, I'm Louise Hare, and I'm going to be reading from my novel This Lovely City. The bit I'm going to read is one of the sections from 1948, starting on page 80, and this is where my two main characters, Laurie and Evie, first meet. Evie watched them from across the street, concealing herself amongst the steady flow of commuters who rushed in and out of Clapham South tube station. The newcomers emerged, blinking, into the bright sunshine through a secret door that she'd never noticed before, hidden in plain sight. She'd only seen men so far, which was disappointing. She'd hoped for a girl, someone her own age who might need help settling in. Someone who would be grateful to learn how things worked in London, who might become a friend. Ma had told her that they'd have a shock in store, these newcomers who had travelled from so far away, that they would take a while to get used to the city. Maybe that was why Evie's father had left, unable to settle in and think of London as home. Ma said there was no point talking about him, since Evie would never meet him. He didn't even know that Evie existed. When she'd been younger, Evie had hoped he would come back to London, that one day there would be a knock on the door and he would be standing there with his suitcase and a brilliant white smile. When Ma punished her, often for something as slight as spilling a drink or grazing her knee in the school playground, banishing her to her bedroom to think on her mistakes, Evie made up stories about him. In her daydreams, her father was an African king and Ma was a wicked witch who had stolen Evie away from his kingdom. He had spent years searching for her, and when he found her, they would go back to his palace and she would eat all the food she wanted, wear only new dresses, and all the people of the land would envy her. These days she knew better. She would never meet him, and that was for the best. Too much time had passed, and she'd be embarrassed for him to see them now, her and Ma. He was clever, she knew that much. He'd been over on a mathematics scholarship from Sierra Leone, according to Aunt Gertie, who sometimes let go of tiny fragments of information after a third gin. No doubt he had made his fortune by now. An impressive man who would be disappointed to find his daughter with aspirations no higher than to become a qualified secretary, the mother of a child lady who took in piecework to pay the bills. A couple of large army tents had been set up on the grass close to the shelter entrance, and a Union Jack had been raised to make it clear that this wasn't an official operation, government sanctioned. They weren't expecting trouble, but Ma had told her to stay away just in case. She thought that Evie had gone to the pictures with Delia, a thrilling lie that had been stammered out over breakfast. Delia had been kept home from college for the last 2 days with a stomach virus, so there was no risk of her running into Ma by accident. Anyway, how could she stay away? She didn't know anybody who looked like her, and now here were a whole group of people whose skin was even darker than hers, an entire ship full of them. She watched on, but still she could only see men. Evie bit her lip, not sure what to do. Men have needs, Ma said. Evie had to be wary of being left alone with a man, even though she wasn't quite certain what would happen if she was. What would she say to a strange man from another country anyway? She had no idea, but she didn't want to walk away. Instead, she made a bet with herself. She'd walk up to the next female volunteer who came out. She could pretend that she had some questions about the WVS. She was 16 now, old enough to join if she wanted. She crossed her fingers, and almost immediately a woman did appear. She wore the usual WVS uniform, but this woman made it look glamorous, the lines fitting her body as if it had been tailored. Her hair was immaculately coiffed in neat red waves that sat below her standard issue hat. She led out her charges confidently, 6 men whose laughter floated out to Evie on the breeze. They all wore jackets despite the fine June day, the temperature having risen to well over 70. One of them threw a ball into the air casually, spinning it higher each time it left his hands. The jackets came off and were set down as markers to form a playing area. Evie found herself walking across the road before she knew she'd taken a step, like Karen in the red shoes, though her plain brown lace-ups were anything but fit for a princess. The woman had set herself up with a fold-up chair, carried out from the nearest tent by one of the men. She sat and fanned herself with a slim pamphlet or magazine, her legs crossed. Her shoes were standard brogues but with a small heel and polished to a shine. She flicked her hair back as she watched the men remove their shoes and socks, piling them to one side. She was knowingly beautiful, and Evie noticed more than one of the men throwing a glance or a comment her way, trying to attract her attention. The game got underway, and with the men distracted, Evie moved closer. "Excuse me." The woman didn't hear her, so she took another tentative pace forward, as though playing grandmother's footsteps, wanting the woman to turn, but uncertain what to say when she did. "Rose," a male voice called out from behind her, both Evie and the woman turning. "Have you seen my notebook?" You left it lying about. Marge almost threw it away. The woman, Rose, reached under her chair and retrieved a battered blue book, a pencil trapped within its pages. The man looked at Evie, and she felt her cheeks redden beneath his stare. He looked only a little older than her, but he was different to the boys she'd gone to school with. Years of rationing and light deprivation had left him scrawny and pasty. This man was well-fed, tall, and the sun hit the angles of his cheekbones so that it seemed to her in that moment that he was the source of the light. "Can we help you?" Rose walked over. "Oh, What was wrong with her? She'd been standing across the street for half an hour, thinking of nothing but clever instructions, and now she couldn't formulate a simple sentence. "Sorry, You're from round here?" The man interrupted. "Yes, I live over in Brixton." She pointed in the general direction. Rose handed in a notebook. "Laurie, stop pestering the poor girl. She only came to see what was going on, didn't you?" Evie nodded, feeling foolish. The man called Laurie smiled at her, and for almost 6 seconds she forgot to breathe. She felt sweat gather in shallow pools under her arms, trapped by the restrictive white blouse that was prescribed as uniform for her secretarial college. She should have made more effort with her hair, not just scraped it back and forced it into a bun. Compared to Rose, she felt like a little girl. "Why don't you come and watch?" Rose invited. "This lot are mad about cricket, and it'll be nice to have a girl to chat to." Laurie fetched another chair for her, setting it beside Rose's before running off to join his friends. As Evie sat, she caught the glint of Rose's gold wedding band and felt inexplicably relieved. Evie shielded her eyes from the sun with her left hand and watched the cricketers. Laurie was fielding, the closest man to her, his notebook tucked into his back pocket. She noticed that the smile never left his face. She would know she couldn't wrench her eyes from him. 10 minutes into the match, the batsman hit the ball flying high into the air, Laurie running backwards, his eyes tracking the arc of the spinning orb, raising his hands as it aimed towards him, answering his call. Cheers and groans erupted, and Rose clapped, Evie following her lead. Laurie looked over with a proud grin, winking at Evie as she smiled back and doubled her applause. Someone's got an admirer, Rose commented. It's a handsome chap, all right, our Laurie. Evie blushed again, but she was so captivated by Laurie that she didn't think to read anything more into those words. She couldn't imagine that behind Rose's polite smile might lie a thin coil of jealousy. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jac Shreeves-Lee and I'm going to be reading from my book Broadwater. Chapter 1, Teapot Story. 3 mice lie dead on a glue mat. Picking it up by the corners, Teapot avoids the sticky patch in the centre. He's been caught out like that before, glue sticking to his palms or fingers. After dumping the mat in a black bin liner, he places a new one near the back door. Mice creep in from the playing field, finding cracks in the petrol station walls. We're lucky, his younger brother Kaz tells him. It could be rats. Teapot has spent the last few hours cleaning the shelves and surfaces. He keeps a big yellow bucket of warm, soapy water at his side, but doesn't bother changing it when the water turns a dark metallic grey. Dragging the mop over the once cheerful yellow floor tiles, now defeated by time and reduced to dismal beige, he sighs. Kaz will moan that he hasn't rinsed the floor properly, and Kaz will be right. Corners have been missed and thin lanes left unwashed, but once Teapot has thrown the dirty water down a nearby drain, he returns the bucket and mop to the narrow cupboard where the cleaning materials are stored. Dulled by the drudgery of selling petrol and convenience store odds and ends, his eyes scan the assortment of pointless have-a-nice-day knickknacks on the counter. The tacky key rings with smiley faces, the 60s CDs that never sell, and last Easter's Easter eggs going cheap. The central aisles are stacked with groceries, and the corner area near the door is filled with bottles of deionized water, brake fluid, antifreeze, tow ropes, blind spot mirrors, emergency puncture repair kits, L plates, turtle wax, and a myriad of other car maintenance materials. There are cardboard air fresheners ranging from old-fashioned vanilla to hot sticky fudge. Teapot can't believe anyone would seriously want a car smelling of hot sticky fudge. It isn't a bestseller. Customers prefer lavender fields, which the shop frequently runs out of. There are sad bunches of droopy flowers left in the plastic tub beside the newspaper rack, and men who have forgotten to buy flowers for their wives stop on their way home to rummage among them. Some customers, like Mr. Pettigrew, the polite old boy with skin the colour of mushroom soup, come to buy a lottery ticket before the 7:30 deadline. Mr. Pettigrew once told Teapot that he wants to leave Tottenham and return to his childhood home of Devon, where he'll end his day with sedate, clotted cream teas and views of an unchanging, unhurried sea. Others are hooked on what they could do with a cool 100 million rollover. Tariq Ali, better known as Teapot, and Kazim Ali, known as Kaz, have worked in the petrol station since leaving school. Local kids call them the Petrol Brothers. Their father says the family business is a good little earner. He hopes his sons will continue with it, but Teapot's mind isn't set that way. He has ambitions and dreams above the stink of petrol and car loads of unhappy families. 5 years earlier, just after he left school, Teapot found a job with a summer play scheme and enjoyed it even more than he'd expected. He likes lippy, hell-bent kids and can spot the fear and doubt beneath their gritty bravado. During the first week, one boy, Panagiotis Christodoulou, inserted a small plastic peg up his left nostril. and 2 days later managed to wedge his head between some railings. He's crying out for attention, decided Rob, the lead youth worker. Teapot found a way in, and over the following 6 weeks turned Panagiotis into a boisterous, laughing 8-year-old. Rob told Teapot that he was a natural with the kids, and for a while he played with the idea of training to be a youth worker or teacher until his father said, "Forget it, no one makes money helping messed up kids." When Teapot returned to college, Kaz asked if he was being serious. He remarked that he needed his head tested. Kaz isn't academic. He prefers fast cars, women, and the slick, steamy rush of nightclubs. Teapot checks his watch. 9 o'clock, Friday evening. Only the feisty, keen-eyed foxes patrol the local streets at this time. He likes the night, catching the edgy coil in the air, the scent of risk, of most people heading home, but others intent on breaking whatever rules and taboos they maintain in the day. The thick glass door pushes open, and a young black woman enters the shop, Donna Flint. She walks in beauty like the night. Byron's words could have been written for her. Her black skin fleeced with the buff of midnight and the startle of her dark, baleful eyes. Each time she walks in, Teapot feels something new moving inside him. She comes in all weathers, arms either loose and swinging or tightly folded beneath her breast, as if she is bracing against a harsh wind or cramped with period pain. Donna reminds him of no one else. She is purely and wholly herself, but in a trapped and belligerent way. As she walks past the curved mirror mounted in the corner, Donna's figure stretches and spreads as she cartoons in and out. Teapot sees her lips move as she softly sings. Dooba-dooba-dooba, dooba-dooba-dooba, dooba-dooba-dooba-dooba-dooba, dooba-dooba-dooba, dooba-doo-dooba-dooba-dooba, dooba-dooba-doo-ba-ba-doo-doo, dooba-dooba-dooba. Picking up one of the awkward metal baskets, she hooks her arms through its red rubber handles. She never buys petrol. As far as Teapot knows, she can't drive, hasn't got a car. Teapot went to school with Donna's brother Danny, in year 10. They'd bunk off school, head down to Tottenham marshes, smoke weed and fish in the nearby River Lee. All they ever caught was small blue-grey minnows, which they always threw back. After the Tottenham riots, Danny got sent down along with Eddie and Big Mikey, his cousins. It was Danny who coined Tarek's nickname. Other kids called him half-breed or mongrel. But with Danny Flint, he was just Teapot. Never given full membership by black or white kids, Teapot was pushed to the periphery. He tried not to let the other kids matter, but Kaz carried a small ivory switchblade back then. Donna walks along each aisle, armoured in her denim bomber jacket and narrow jeans. Multicoloured bracelets join the jingle-jangle percussion of metal basket and high-rise heels. Hovering over the jams and marmalades, she stoops to search through the biscuits, her fingers fluttering over the jammy Dodgers and Jaffa cakes. After tossing a packet of Viscount chocolate cookies and a bottle of iron brew into the basket, she quickly wedges 2 packets of custard creams, her favourites, into a jacket pocket. Sometimes she steals small loaves of bread, bottles of shampoo, bars of soap, or packs of processed cheese from the fridge. A couple of times a week in this small fluorescent theatre, Donna performs her deviant ballet, and a watchful Teapot wonders what she'll steal next. She reminds him of the bad magician he saw as a kid at a friend's Halloween party. When nobody clapped, and everyone spent most of their time on their hands and knees hunting for a lost white rabbit. Donna tucks a stick of Cadbury's flake up her left sleeve. She's needle thin, and he wonders what she does with all that food. Some years ago, he went to Danny's 18th birthday party, and there was a very long kiss that in Teapot's head ran into miles and hours. Teapot had slowly opened his eyes to peer at Donna's glorious face, and there she was, looking back at him. She broke off the kiss and left him in the hallway, shocked off and confused. Later he got it. You don't peek when you're kissing. It raises a suspicion that your motives are elsewhere or that you're second-guessing. Teapot, however, had been fully present, so present he thought he'd combust. Donna continued to ignore him for the rest of the evening, and he assumed he'd been filed under mistake. Afterwards, when they passed one another on the street, they'd mumble awkward hellos that dribbled into sheepish, barely there nods. A handful of years now cordon and separate them from that night. Teapot has emptied his time away in the petrol station, and Donna disappeared for a while. People said she went to stay with relatives in Derby. Crouching by the fridge, she squeezes a small carton of milk into another pocket. Local gossip reported that she wasn't well. Something whispered, half-caught. Women's problems or something mental. When the world went wonky, or she went wonky in the world. Teapot wonders whether life had stolen so much from her that she wants to snatch it back. She's a bit strange in her inwardness, he thinks, but she's also a bit of wonderful torn tinsel Tottenham. He doesn't know when Donna's fingers became so light and nimble, but he guesses they're empty inside pockets that she needs to fill. I hope you enjoyed my reading. I hope there weren't too many mistakes, and I hope that you'll get the book and find out what happens to Teapot, Kaz, and Donna. Thank you very much for listening. Have a great day. Bye-bye.